Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Bluesman, Johnny Blues, and I thought today I'd share some of my earliest gaming memories. I was actually watching a video from the Inside Gaming guys, one of their Q&As, and they were asked essentially, what were some of their earliest memories gaming-wise, and kind of, took a trip down memory lane to think back to what my earliest memories were. And like a lot of people out there, I grew up with the Nintendo Entertainment System, the original with Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, Legend of Zelda, that kind of stuff. Never actually finished Legend of Zelda because my younger sister would always end up, blanking the memory of the saved game and everything. So never got to finish that. But my memory actually of video games goes back even further than that. I mean, stuff like Pac-Man in the arcades and the Star Wars game that was all kind of like lines and stuff like that. Specifically remember hearing Luke Skywalker's voice, Red 5 standing by as you're waiting to pop the quarters into that game. And I remember my parents had either had an Atari 2600 or perhaps a console known as, I think, Commodore 64. I don't remember which one it was, but I've seen them subsequently, and they were basically, I was reminded of my parents having this thing, and I think maybe we played Pong on it, maybe Space Invaders, something of that sort. But that's not even the earliest my memory goes back. Basically, because my dad was a self-taught electrician, he had been contracted at one point to fix the wiring of this arcade game, a full cabinet arcade game that was like a submarine game, and the whole front of this thing was made to look like a submarine viewport or scope, periscope as it were. And you'd essentially stand in front of this thing and operate the scope, and there were buttons to fire missiles or what have you. And you'd either be firing at like enemy ships above water or underwater sharks, I think it was. And this was actually the very first thing I ever had my hands on that was gaming-like, And then between the mid to late 80s and early to mid 90s, I went through this period of just sort of falling out of love with video games and such like that. I mean, we never got our hands on a Super Nintendo. We did eventually, catch up with Sega Genesis, games like Mortal Kombat and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and stuff like that were pretty much the most prevalent games we would play. But then there were many years where we didn't have any sort of gaming console or interests in them until the N64 PlayStation PS1 days. In 1997, my cousin had introduced me to Final Fantasy VII on the PS1, and that's what really made my brain go full circle with gaming and such like that. It was later I played Metal Gear Solid all the way through and Final Fantasy VIII all the way through, and then I went back and finished Final Fantasy VII, but things like Grand Theft Auto would come later, and the other, various volumes in the Final Fantasy franchise, 9, 10, 10-2, 12, all that stuff, and the Metal Gear franchise, of course. And it was just a fascinating thing because I went through kind of similar processes with reading. I was a very early reader, and then I fell out of love with it for about a decade and finally went back to it. Comic books were something that I fell out of love. I had an early love with and fascination with and passion for, and I fell out of love with that. Stayed away from that for about a decade, found my way back. And video games was much the same thing. So, I mean, it was really just an interesting thing how, impactful video games has been for a lot of us this day and age. And I've had a Game Boy Advance, I had the original Game Boy, and I would love to be able to have, I had a PS3 for a while. I still only have an operable Sega Genesis and N64 and PS2. My PS3 died, and just been wanting to get one of those back again. Haven't even scratched the surface of the PS4 and the Xbox One, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you have any memories to share of your earliest run-ins with video games or your most fond recollections of your childhood and being introduced to them, stuff like that, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below or as a video response. And otherwise, I hope this video finds you well. I'll catch you later. Peace.